Hello, good afternoon. We are here today to learn about money, mindset, and budgeting. And this will be our agenda for today. So we'll do some introductions, our relationship with money, awareness and patterns, reframing and skill building, and steps towards budgeting. Steps towards a budget. We'll begin with introductions. My name is Chris Helkett. I'm a registered social worker and mental health therapist. I own my own business called Kasagayego and Mental Health Therapy, Mental Health Services. I'm a proud Vermont Cree woman and a member of the Lac Orangenian Band. I live in La Ronge and I'm also a wife and mom. I have 6 kiddos, 2 of them are autistic and the remaining are neurotypical. I have 2 adult children and a grandbaby. They often teach me a lot about the world, seeing the world through different perspectives as well. Before we continue further, I want to point out where the washrooms are and let you know you're free to use them as you need. I also want you to know that we'll take a break along the way. I only have you for a short time today, so I want to make sure that you feel comfortable while you're with me. And there are snacks and beverages available, so please help yourself. You learn best when you're not focusing on your thirst or your hunger. Another way that is helpful for our learning is by taking time to calm down our nervous system. So anytime we have to introduce ourselves, or we're learning something new, or we're around new people, we can feel our nervous system begin to activate. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes to deactivate and calm down our nervous system. So I'd like for you to, whatever else you do, you can stand, sit, as long as you're comfortable, and for you to close your eyes and take your right hand and place it on your heart. And I'd like for you to just focus on your breathing. Focus on where your feet are, the points of contact to another surface. I'd like for you to take a deep breath through your nose. We're going to hold for 3 seconds and then release through our mouth. Deep breath in. 3, 2, 1. Relax your shoulders. Focus on your legs. The point of contact to another surface. Notice how it's supporting you. Notice the sounds around you. We're going to take a deep breath in through our nose, hold for 3 seconds, and out our mouth. Deep breath in. 3, 2, 1. Release. Relax your shoulders. Focus on the warmth of your hand to your chest. And one more deep breath in. We won't hold, just deep breath in, then release through the mouth. Deep breath. And out. And when you're ready, you can wiggle your toes and your fingers and open your eyes. And we shall begin. Okay, so where we'll begin is just learning about our relationship with money. And this sort of stems from often early on in our life, but I just want you to remember that money is emotional, it's not logical. Because if it were logical, no one would overspend, no one would avoid bills, and no one would panic check their bank accounts. We often spend money based on how we feel in the moment or how we hope we feel after. For example, maybe late at night while you're bored, you may be easily influenced to buy something from Amazon or the TikTok shop, or maybe you're feeling stressed and anxious and retail therapy is something that helps you feel better. Or possibly you're so excited about something and you want to celebrate, so you go out to eat. Or you could even feel a sense of fear and use that fear as your action toward being stingy as a way to cope. Or feel that money equals surviving or belonging, or even is a measure of our self-worth. So sometimes people will think if they have a lot of money, then they're more valuable, or if they don't have enough money or anything at all, then they're worthless. So it really relates to our emotional state, and it's important for us to be mindful of that. Where our money story comes from. So these are some areas where our money story comes from. Our family's attitudes. So if we come from a family who's often in scarcity or they're in abundance, that's going to impact how we see money. Our childhood experiences, any trauma or instability, our cultural messages or social norms, and shame-based learning. So things like, oh, you should have known better. Also, I want everybody to be aware there are other things that also impact our money story. One of them is, as First Nations people, we were often restricted from doing anything with money. Our history shows that Indian agents used to take all of our money anytime we earned anything, if we earned anything, by selling something or making something and selling it. We had to give our money to the Indian agent. And it really wasn't until around like 1950s, 1945 to 1951, when Indigenous people were allowed to actually open a bank account. There was no real laws that restricted from opening bank accounts, but there were laws that restricted Indigenous people from participating in Canadian economy and in Canadian society. So that impacted how our relationship was with money. So cultural messages is really important to be mindful, and historical relationship with money. Our people don't often understand what generational wealth is, or have been given opportunity to learn about investments or learn about retirement or learn about property ownership, because we've never really given there was not a lot of space for us to be able to do that access, or there was restrictions for us to be able to do that. So it's important to be mindful of that, as well as individuals who are born with FASD, or maybe are diagnosed or undiagnosed ADHD, have something called impulse control. So, or a lack of impulse control. So impulsive spending can be really common for people who are ADHD or FASD. So it's really important to be mindful of that. When understanding our triggers and understanding our relationship can help us create a better spending plan. So I'd like for you to just be mindful of, what did the money conversations look like for you growing up? And what do money conversations look like now? I'll tell a little story about sort of my introduction to money or understanding money. My first memory about money was not really a conversation, it was more of an observation. I remember my kokam taking me to her friend's house. It was late in the evening, it was winter, so she could play poker and house bingo. And I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I remember seeing all these rappies and watching all the coins being tossed onto a blanket on the floor while they played cards. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but that was my first memory of money. And I remember taking a couple of $2 bills and playing with them. And Nokum just grabbed them from me and she said, "Kada pesquita na suniamis." And I remember thinking, you guys are playing with money, how come I can't? So my first introduction to money was to see it as sort of a tool to have fun with. It wasn't really a tool for anything else. My thinking has now changed because I see money as a tool to build the life that I want. And it does include some fun. Okay, so here are some common money coping styles. I just want you to be mindful that these are coping styles. It doesn't say anything about being incorrect or wrong or horrible or a reflection of who you are. They're just coping styles. So some of these things are avoiding. So avoiders, they may not look at their bank account or how they manage money at all. Spenders, so they often use money to help regulate their emotions. Controllers, so anxiety-driven, tight control. Rescuers, they overspend on others. Gamblers or risk takers, these are dopamine-driven money behaviors. And these are not mutually exclusive, which means you're not just one or the other, but one of them may be more prominent coping style than the other. You can have multiple variations of them, but they're just coping styles. Keep in mind, like I mentioned, that they're coping styles. They are not character traits. So let's normalize the discussions around behaviors as being a mechanism we use to operate rather than how or who we are. We can change behavior if we want to. It takes observation, time, and a plan, and sticking to that plan. We are here just to understand these coping strategies, and I want you to just avoid judging them. Okay, awareness and patterns. I know this template looks a little bit askewed, like I would love a $117 power bill, but I think this is supposed to be a summer bill, especially when you live in the north, and then your power bills are probably 2 or 3 times that amount. But it is important to remember that change does not occur instantly. It doesn't occur out of thin air. Awareness comes before change. We need to be aware of an issue or a problem or something that is causing a problem in order for us to make the change in that behavior. Tracking spending, it means taking the time to review everything. So I'd like for you to be curious about where money comes and where it goes. It's about data collection. It's not a reflection of who you are, it just reflects on how you manage money. So it's going to start with tracking your spending without any judgments, being curious instead of restricting yourself, and data collection does not mean or equal morality. Triggers that influence our spending. It's a good practice to ask yourself some questions about your spending. I want you to think about the last time that you had an unplanned purchase. What was happening just before that purchase? This acronym, HALT. Hungry, anger, lonely, or tired. It helps us identify some triggers. It helps us be mindful of our emotional state, environments. Sometimes people will either just stay home and feel bored and might shop on apps. Understanding our cognitive distortions. So these are things like maybe thinking, oh, just another $50 and I'll win, when we look at maybe gambling or that risk-taking behavior. Or even, I deserve this, who cares how much it costs. Also our physiological state. If we're tired or hungry, it might increase our likelihood to spend mindlessly, right? We might not think about how we're spending. Okay, so it's important to separate our needs, our comforts, and our dopamine-driven spending. So needs are going to be things that are like survival stuff. Identifying these is important. Our needs are going to be things that maintain our safety, our health, and our basic functioning. So I want you to think of things like rent, power, right, shelter, food, and clothing. These are sort of non-negotiable spending. They need to be, we need to spend money on those things. And then separating them from things that we find our comfort in. So spending things on like, to manage our stress. I like to do puzzles. Puzzles is a hobby for me. So I may spend, money on puzzles, and a puzzle is not very cheap. They're like $30 for a puzzle now. So, but our comfort are going to be things that regulate our emotions. So things that are hobbies, personal care. I also get my nails done. Some people get their lashes done. So those are gonna be those sort of comfort things for enjoyment. Another thing that I do is every year, my husband and I go with our friends and their partners on a couples retreat. We go spend a weekend in the city and we do something fun. So a couple of years ago we did laser tag. A couple of years before that we did an escape room. A couple of years before that we did a movie and dinner and a movie. So there are things that you can do for fun or comfort, and that's going to be its sort of own category. And then separating dopamine spending as well from our needs and comforts. And dopamine spending are going to be things that they're sort of the impulsive things, right? Like impulsive online shopping, or clicking on that subscription that you want to use once and then you end up not using anymore, or even gambling. Those are the escape and the thrill, or maybe the numbing. So it's important to ask these questions. What are our basic needs? What helps me feel comforted? And what helps me feel excited? So now we're going to learn about reframing and skill building. Instead of holding shame over ourselves for the past, we can be more productive with our time when we move forward with action. We are not being helpful to ourselves by ruminating on our past decision making around money. We cannot change the past, we can only learn from it. Identifying harmful self-talk about money is going to be really important for us. So things like, I'm bad with money, or I don't know where my money goes, or I spend money all the time that I don't have. So changing our thoughts, rather than saying I'm bad with money, we could say something like, I'm eager to learn how to be better with money. And then separating money from our self-worth, understanding we are worthy no matter what our bank account looks like. Practicing self-compassion, treat yourself with the same kindness you would treat someone who is experiencing suffering. Focus on a plan of action. Spend more time doing rather than thinking about doing. Because we can sit and build a plan till we're blue in the face, but it's not going to make much of a difference if we don't take action in our plan. What is an unhelpful thought you might have about money? One thought I've had is, I've said, I always mess up when I start a budget, so what's the point? If a budget fails, it is not our failure. It is a system of the budget that has failed. And we can always change that system to help us be more successful. Once shaming starts, once it starts happening, learning becomes more difficult and easier to rebel against. So remember, if you fall while learning to ride a bike, you don't say, oh, I'm so bad at riding bikes. You adjust the seat, you change the settings of the bike, and you ask for help. You go slower and you try again. So budgeting is the same thing. It is a skill you learn with adjustment, time, and repetition. So when we say things like, oh, I haven't really followed my plan, or it's too difficult to start, it's important to remember that our brains are structured in a way that we like to avoid change. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. Okay, so this is going to be a little activity that we're going to do. If you have your phone ready, I'd like for you to just Google, search up on your Safari or Google, values. Value-based spending is really helpful for us. Your budget is going to look different from another person's budget. This is a good thing. It shows us that we all have a different value system and we're all at different stages in our life. So I'd like you to search up and select 5 top values. You can also choose from this list this short little list here that I have available, if any of them pop out at you. But you can write them in your notes or just be mindful of those 5 values. So now that you've got your values selected, I want you to ask yourself, does my current spending align with these values? Okay, and also I'd like for you to be mindful that safety before all else is going to be important for us. If creating a budget feels like a punishment or feels undoable, you may hold off on starting at all. Our brains are structured to avoid distress. Change equals distress. A gentle structure can help alleviate our distress by creating small changes over time. Reminding ourselves of our humanity and that learning new skills takes time. A gentle structure is about creating a supportive framework that allows for flexibility and adaptability in our daily life. So things that can move and change with us. It emphasizes the importance of having a routine that is not overly rigid, enabling us to respond better to our needs and circumstances without feeling constrained. It helps reduce the stress of change. So one thing that is important to remember is that our brain loves patterns. Our brain loves structure, which is why it is so difficult to change our behavior. Because when we start to change our behavior, our brain goes, whoa, this is a new pathway. What are you doing? I'm lost. I don't know where you're taking me over here. So then it reverts back to old behavior because that pattern or that pathway is already cleared. It already walked that pathway so many times. So I want you to think of pathways, which are our skills, like a trail. It's a pathway that we've walked many times, and if you think about a trail, it's cleared, it's got no debris on it, it's cleared so that the path is impacted down and it's walked on from many footsteps. A new habit is a new pathway that is not cleared. It has obstructions, so we have to slowly move those obstructions out the way so that we can walk down that pathway, and it's going to take repetition, time, discipline, motivation, and understanding. So feeling safety in our budgets is going to be important. The first steps into a budget are what I like to also call a spending plan. Because often the word budget can bring up a feeling of restriction and control. But what a budget really is about how you make it. It is a plan of where money goes. It's a tool to help you reach your goals that you have. It is personal to you, and it should be flexible and non-restrictive and adaptable to your life. So I want you to think of a budget as this sort of framework, a plan, a tool, personal, flexible, and adaptable. We want to avoid the idea of perfection and immediate cuts. Change should be gradual. So it's important to look at your life how it already is, analyze it, and then figure out what about that or what about those things that you already do you want to be different. Stabilize and build build our awareness. So focusing on fixed expenses, our minimum obligations, preventing chaos, which are things like missed bills or stepping into our overdraft or missed payments, and then listing our things in broad categories. So fixed expenses are going to be things that don't change or they have a low rate of change and they're recurring. Things like rent, phone bill, power bill, internet. Think of predictable. Prioritize your minimum obligations to your expenses. Identify due dates and ensure they are listed. Sometimes having a calendar can be more helpful because having a calendar can be specific to your budget, or having a calendar that is specific to a budget can be helpful, and it's highly recommended because then you can see visually what day something is due. And then listing those broad categories is going to be helpful as well because we're sort of giving ourselves less of sometimes less is more, right? Less feels more helpful. So categories like housing, food, transportation, personal funds, savings, or a buffer. The reality budget. So this is also good for you to remember. Use actual spending habits, not imagined numbers. No shaming yourself for past behavior and start at your baseline. Remember, you're planning a budget for who you are now, not who you hope to be someday. Starting small and adjust over time. So I've asked people to bring statements. We're going to start working on setting the stage for your budget. 3 months of statements can really help us see behavior because when we look at habits, we look at a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day increment. It helps us see patterns. If you didn't bring a bank statement, you can also open up your banking app and see your transactions there. That can be helpful. And what we're going to do is sort of separate two categories. We're going to do cataloging. And cataloging is just itemizing everything. So we're going to itemize things that go out. These are our expenses. And itemize things that come in. These are going to be income. I want you to also include things if you're a beater or you babysit or you do house cleaning or laundry on the side as a side hustle. Include those things as well. If you make extra money in that sort of sense, you can do that, or shift work or on-call service. Those are going to be your income. You can also work from your memory if you didn't bring anything or you don't have access to your statements. There is an issue with using just our memory because it doesn't capture everything. It doesn't allow us to capture the whole picture. So even as these tools that you're developing today, these skills that you're learning today, you can take home and work on over and over again. So if you spend money just strictly using a debit card, review 3 months of statements from now for the next 3 months. If you only use cash for purchases, keep all of your receipts so that you can calculate, okay, I've spent, $400 on groceries in the last 2 weeks. Or I spend $20 at Five Buds every week, or whatever that might look like. Now we can begin to categorizing all of our expenses and identifying any income. And it's important to remember that we should only change 1 or 2 things at a time to protect joy spending and build a buffer before any big goals. So starting small is really important for us, for humans, because changing big it just gives us more room for error. I also want you to be mindful that this is not about judging ourselves, it's just about observation. Just observing our behavior. And then I give 20 minutes for this. So this is going to be just a very basic sample budgeting template. I'm moving my mouse around on my screen thinking it's moving on this screen, but it doesn't. So list your items in these areas. So income, this can be anything from child tax benefit, any paychecks, old age security, Canada pension plan, social assistance, extra side hustles, and then list our fixed expenses and debts, and then those variable expenses and savings. So once you've identified all of your items and you catalog them, you want to place them into categories. List and total all of your income, so all of the avenues of anything you bring into the household. It can also include money from any side hustles. Then fixed expenses, and these are going to be those needs-based expenses, right? They're going to be predictable and unchanging, as well as those minimum payments to any debts, things like errands bills or payday loans or credit cards. And then your variable expenses are going to be those comfort expenses like fun, streaming services, annual trips, eating out, even groceries is part of a variable expense because it kind of changes and fluctuates over time. And then savings is going to be that sort of last category because it's goal-based and it varies on your income, what's left over. Some other budgeters and other creators of this sort of content will recommend a system. Sometimes the system's going to look like 50, 30, 20, where 20% of any income goes directly to savings no matter what. So some individuals will recommend pay yourself first. But we're in a different situation currently, and especially in the north. Sometimes our income doesn't even meet all of our fixed expenses or variable expenses. So by recognizing that, we can be more mindful of, okay, there may be some extra things I can do to earn a little extra income so I can add it to my savings. Because my current full-time job covers all of my expenses and variable expenses. And I would like to save, so maybe I need to do extra work, like pick up extra shifts or find a second job. Or I know a lady who for 30 years has picked cans and has saved enough, like she saved enough to pay off her mortgage. And that for me is wild, but it was doable. Just from picking cans, she would go every single night for 2 hours walking around just to pick up cans. She would take her dogs for walks. You'll probably still see her if you go in L'Orange, she still does it to this day. So it's pretty cool. And then lastly, I want you to remember that there are going to be common budgeting setbacks, and these are things like over-restricting. We want to try and avoid this, right? By remembering to work with what we already do, not what we wish to be doing. Being mindful to ignore our emotional spending, using HALT as sort of that tool to help us remember, okay, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Another trick is some people use to say, wait 24 to 48 hours. If I still want to buy that thing, then I'll buy it. Or, what's the other one? If I can buy it twice, then I'll get it. So if you can't buy it twice, then you would want to avoid buying it. All or nothing thinking. So making mistakes is a very normal part of learning. You want to reframe your thoughts and be kind to yourself while you learn a new habit. Sometimes people will think they messed up on their budget and they go, I'll just start again next month. Or, I already messed this up, there's no point in continuing to go. So that's an all or nothing thinking. We want to redirect that and say, okay, today I maybe made a couple of mistakes, but tomorrow is a new day and I can keep working on my budget. I can keep working on what I need to work on. I just need to make adjustments. And then restarting from scratch. It's really okay to start over, but I want you to remember that our budget should be adaptable. It should be able to adapt to change. And it's not static. It's not, written in stone. We can adjust it as we go. If we messed up somewhere, we can take from something else and put it somewhere else, right? If I spent $100 more on groceries this month than last month, okay, so that might mean that I don't get to do my nails this month, right? Or maybe this month it means that I'm not gonna spend that extra $50 on my fund because I had to take from that, and that's okay. It's not, it's just 1 month. It's not gonna be the end of everything, so it's important to be mindful of that. It's okay to start from scratch. It's okay to start over, but you can adjust. And then there's my information, so thank you so much for being here today and listening to me chat away. And if there's any questions or anybody wants to know any more information, you can reach me at these points of contact. Thank you so much.